Welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback. We're flashing back to August 12th, 1988, and we've got a lot of notable movies on this particular episode, so we have a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get right to it. We got 5 films to look at. Let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is, of course, Young Guns.
Fate made them orphans.
Lord in heaven, please, Dick, it's getting cold. I don't want to kill you, want to eat.
Pass the gravy, please. Corruption made them outlaws.
Stop! They're too many!
Vengeance made them men.
It's 100 against 5. I like these odds.
Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, Young Guns, rated R. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
So you have a group of young gunmen led by Billy the Kid, played by Emilio Estevez, becoming deputies to avenge the murder of the rancher who became their benefactor, but when Billy takes their authority too far, they become the hunted. And not only do you have Emilio Estevez, you see in the trailer Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, Dermot Mulroney, Casey Siemaszko, Terrence Stamp is also in here as well, Jack Palance, Terry O'Quinn, even Tom Cruise has an uncredited cameo in here towards the end of the climactic shootout. He's actually one of Murphy's henchmen that gets shot and killed by Casey Siemaszko's character. And this has been called one of the most historically accurate versions of all the Billy the Kid films as of June of 1990, which I don't know if that's saying a whole lot. I mean, I guess Young Guns 2, a couple months after that, would kind of change that. We already talked about Young Guns 2 over on the main Time About the Movie show, but I never really delved into this one in particular. I thought this one was pretty good. I think it works because you have 6 really good talented actors in here, young actors, working off each other, playing these memorable historic figures. You've got, of course, Billy the Kid, Dick Brewer, Dirty Steve Stevens, Jose Chavez. I mean, there's some notable names in history here, and of course you have William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid, and they have a lot of good people involved in here. Good talent all around here, good action overall here. I'm not a big Western person, honestly, but I've started to realize that there were a lot of good Western films coming out around this time period. I mean, we had we had Unforgiven, we had a couple of other ones as well, and maybe I'm actually more of a fan of these westerns than I'm letting on here, but I thought this one was pretty good. I think this is a very solid film. It works very well with the cast they have involved here. Good young talent overall here. A good director in Christopher Kane. Writer John Fusco also does a very good job here as well. I think it's a winner. I think it's an all-around winner. I can see why it was a big success when it came out. It was a really well-made film. Good cast overall. Good action overall. It's a good fun time. I enjoyed it a lot. So that's Young Guns. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Francis Ford Coppola's Tucker, the Man and His Dream.
Not since The Godfather has Francis Ford Coppola brought such excitement to the screen. People magazine calls Tucker a striking, stirring film achievement. Time magazine says Jeff Bridges gives the performance of his life, and Newhouse newspaper says it will make you come out of the theater cheering.
Oh, let
Tucker, the true story of the man and his dream. Rated PG. Now playing at a theater near you.
So this is based on the story of Preston Tucker, who basically attempts to produce and market his own car, the Tucker 48, which was actually met with scandal by the big 3 automobile manufacturers and accusations of stock fraud from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. You also have, in addition to Jeff Bridges, Joan Allen, Martin Landau, Elias Koteas, Frederick Forrest, and Christian Slater among the cast in here. And this wasn't only a Francis Ford Coppola-made film, this was also produced by George Lucas, as you see the Lucasfilm Ltd. Production label on there. And I don't know if I've ever talked about it on this particular show, but I've definitely talked about it in post on the on the website as well. But Francis Ford Coppola made a lot of really good movies in the 1980s. I know they weren't big financial successes, and some of them were maybe more style over substance in terms of the box office overall for them, but you know, he made a lot of great movies around this time period in the 1980s. Like, he made One from the Heart, which I think is a very critically underrated film. The Outsiders, which is a fantastic film. Rumblefish, The Cotton Club, Peggy Sue Got Married. And this one in particular is really, really good. And it showcases what Jeff Bridges can do as an actor in a movie. He got nominated for I believe he got nominated for an Oscar for this, or if he didn't, he should have. But I know Martin Landau got nominated for an Oscar, and actually won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. But he's really good in the movie. He plays this character so well. You really do get behind his story and what he's trying to accomplish here, trying to be the car that gets in the way, that gets into with all the other competitors out there, like Dodge and General Motors and Ford and Chrysler and all these other companies. And it doesn't go the way he kind of wants it to, but in the end, it does lead to something that could be leads to a very engaging storyline. And apparently Coppola had a lot more ideas of what he wanted to do with this. He wanted this to be both a musical and an experimental film, because this has been in development since the 1970s. In fact, he wanted Marlon Brando for the leading role in this, back when this was pitched in 73, and then in 76, it then eventually decided to become a musical and experimental film, and it was actually going to have songs by Leonard Bernstein among the people involved in writing it, but then eventually collapsed when Coppola's company experienced financial troubles, and then George Lucas helped to get this off the ground again, and we got the movie as it is, which honestly, I think this works better as it is, because I don't know if this could work very well as a musical and experimental film from Coppola. I mean, it seems like it'd be a little bit too much in my opinion, but like I said, we do get a great film overall with this. Jeff Bridges is fantastic in here. The visual look of the movie is impressive to look at. It's a really well done film, and like I said, Coppola made a lot of great films in the 80s that weren't the biggest hits for the most part. Most of them were actually kind of financial failures in general, but man, you can't deny this guy had a lot of aspirations of what he wanted to make with his films, and he really showed it in the films he made in the 80s. We'll definitely get to those as we move backwards in time, but this is one of those ones that really shows what he can do. When he was experimental, even though his movies were not making the money that he made back in the 70s with like the Godfather films and the Apocalypse Now, but it's a great movie, man. It's a very underrated film. If you have not seen Tucker, the Man in the Stream, definitely check it out, because it is definitely worth the watch. And speaking of underrated gems that probably don't get the attention they deserve, Michael Keaton stars in our next film, Clean and Sober.
Michael Keaton's career skyrockets to the stratosphere in his first dramatic film, says Richard Friedman of Newhouse Newspapers. Michael Keaton, Clean and Sober, rated R, starts Wednesday, August 10th at a theater near you.
Some think Beetlejuice is the movie that Michael Keaton essentially won the role of Batman over. I'd like to think that was the case because of his relationship with Tim Burton. I also think this movie too, because man, this was a really good movie, and I'll talk about that in a second after I just a rundown of a plot here. You basically have Michael Keaton as a real estate agent struggling with a substance abuse problem, and he goes in this 12-step meeting. He's trying to get better. He's got all these different people here. Morgan Freeman, I guess, is kind of his codependent on here, and not even a codependent, but the guy who kind of helps him out, try to get back to. He's a drug rehabilitation counselor. Is what I'm trying to say here, and This is another one of those movies that's very underrated. Ron Howard produced this movie. This is actually directed by the guy who created Moonlighting, who has not had the best track record in terms of films in general, but this is a really good, strong film in terms of the acting overall here. I think the acting overall is very top-notch. Like I said, this is Michael Keaton's first attempt at a dramatic performance, and I really think you got to look at this and see why Tim Burton thought he was the best choice for Batman, because you definitely see a lot of what we'll eventually see in the Batman movie that came out after this. Sorry about that. I had to burp. I wanted to be professional. I didn't want to get it on camera. But anyway, like I was saying, I really think you should check this movie out solely to see what Michael Douglas, good lord, I'm out of it right now. Michael Keaton brings to this performance, because I really do think he does bring a lot of the performance that we would see in Batman. Like in Batman, you have to play a very serious role here, and I think he handles it pretty well here. I think he's got a lot of great talent on board in terms of the rest of the cast surrounding him. Kathy Baker, I previously mentioned Morgan Freeman, M. Emmett Walsh, Tate Donovan, Claudia Christian, Brian Benben. A really good cast overall here. It kind of falls into predictable territory in terms of the story department. In fact, even Ronald Reagan, who saw this movie at Camp David when he was still president, basically wrote in his diary, "Watched a long and not very entertaining movie about a man fighting drugs." From the guy that's the man behind the "Winners Don't Use Drugs" campaign. If you were like that type of stuff, like there, like if he's saying that, then clearly you must have messed up on here, because like yeah, the script really isn't the best overall, but it's one of those movies where you can kind of let it go because the performances are so good on their own that they definitely deserve the attention just for that alone. And I think the performances in here are really that good enough that they carry the load in general in here. I think they watch this specifically to see what Michael Keaton can do with his range as an actor. I think it works very well here. I recommend it just for those performances alone. I think it is worth it just for the performances in this. Definitely check this one out, clean and sober. And I guess you could say this next one's something you might want to watch. You probably won't get the enjoyment out of it in terms of a good movie, but you'll get it in a so good it's bad type of way, so bad it's good type of way. And that is, of course, Mac and Me.
They are strangers from another planet, and the government is keeping them a secret. But one 10-year-old boy believes they are here, and he knows something is horribly wrong.
You got a problem here.
Now he is about to risk his life to make it right. A universal friendship. Mac and Me. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of bad E.T. knockoffs that came out around this time period. Some of them turned out to be fine on their own, but no movie has been so infamously bad as known as the worst E.T. knockoff of all time than Mac and Me. This is a film that, right from its production, the fact that McDonald's was behind this movie from the very beginning, the history behind this movie is incredible to think about here, because this was first developed by the guy who was behind the Ronald McDonald House Charities. And he explained at the time that Ronald McDonald was even more well-known than Santa Claus, but that E.T. was close behind, and thus felt that the next generation needed an E.T. of their own, even though E.T. was only 6 years old when this movie came out. So basically, the film was financed by McDonald's, but what happened was the director of this, Stuart Raphael, was basically brought in as a director before he even had a completed script, and he was basically brought in as he was basically recommended to the producer by James Brolin, who had worked on the film High Risk with him a couple years prior to this, but he later went on to say that he was hired out of the blue. The producer asked him to come to his office, so he brought the whole crew down there, a whole crew on the payroll, and he had the transportation captain, the camera head, production manager. He said, everyone's already hired, and I said, where's the script? And he said, we don't have a script. I don't like the script. You have to write the script. You have to write it quickly, so prep the movie, and we'll write the script on the weekend. So this director basically had been brought in to just make shit up as we move along here. And yeah, and you could pretty much tell that this was something that was completely made off the cuff so quickly, because, good lord, this movie, if you've ever seen this movie, it's one of the most insane, ridiculously stupid movies you will ever see. This is a film that it knocks off E.T. so much that even when, like, it gets even stupider than E.T. because stuff that this alien does, you know what the mother does in this movie? There's a scene in the movie where where the alien brings in all these different things from the house, like trees, dirt, and all that. Like the place is a mess. Who's the first person she blames? The kid in the wheelchair. Like, I know you're thinking, like, well, who else could it be that does this? It's just like, why would your first thought be the kid with the wheelchair brings in all these trees, brings in all this dirt, when he can't even walk? Like, come on. Like, it gets so stupid when this entire movie. And that's a good actress that plays her, Christine Ebersol. She was on Saturday Night Live. She was the bad guy in Black Sheep. Like, she's been in some stuff that's been really good, but here it's just like, she just cashed in a paycheck. There's no way she looked at this and said, like, that this is a good script overall. McDonald's probably paid her a ton of money for this, but, like, there are some really ridiculous over-the-top moments. I don't think I need to talk about the infamous scene that Paul Rudd always brings to him when he shows up on Conan O'Brien, the scene where the kid falls off the cliff in the wheelchair. I don't think I need to say anything about that. I don't think I need to say anything about the ridiculous over-the-top McDonald's dancing sequence that comes out of nowhere, and lots of McDonald's references in here, lots of Coca-Cola references. In fact, Coca-Cola plays a big part of the storyline because apparently Coca-Cola is the one thing that can save a ton of lives in this movie. Like, it gets so crazy that there's even one scene in the movie where a kid where the main kid of the movie, Eric, and he basically, there's a scene towards the end of the movie where the kid gets shot like he gets shot by a police officer at the end of the film, and it's like the building in the background explode, and it makes you think like the explosion caused the kid to someone hit the kid in the back and it just killed him. I think no, the kid gets shot in this movie, and is supposedly in the Japanese version of this movie on video. And for the mainstream release, they actually cut that scene out from the test screening, and supposedly it made it like. Apparently, it made it into other cuts of the movie, but there's an older version that made it so that Eric would die off screen. Like, it's a weird scene in general, but the fact that this movie had the balls to go kill a kid and think it's gonna make it work out here, it's just like, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how bad this is. And on top of that, they had the balls to say that this is going to be a sequel. This is going to be a series of films, because the film literally ends with, "We'll be back." Like, no, you're not. I mean, what is it now? We're about over 30 years later. I haven't heard shit about a sequel, and but then again, the producers said as late as 2017, "Oh, we're still going to make a sequel. Don't worry about it, because this film made a ton of money for Orion Pictures." Okay, well, why is Orion Pictures out of business now? Well, okay, it was out of business, but I guess it's back now as kind of a specialty, like an independent, like a specialty company within MGM. But still, like, why would you think that anybody wants to see more of this? Like it's bad enough that they want to try to make a sequel to this 30 years after the original movie. No comedy sequel after 30 years. Almost no comedy sequel after 30 years. Maybe a couple exceptions here and there, but still, nobody wants to see another movie of this. Like, this movie works as a so bad it's good guilty pleasure movie because of just how ridiculous it gets and how much effort everybody puts into this. And it's just like, it's so ridiculously stupid. It's one of the most laziest attempts to cash in on E.T., and they thought that this was going to be the next big thing, and it certainly wasn't. And yeah, it just goes to show you why Orion Pictures isn't its own studio anymore. It has to be a company within a company now. But yeah, I would say avoid this one like the plague, but if you're looking for a fun, so bad it's good movie, I'd say definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it just for the fact that it's stupid, but it's one of those fun, stupid movies. Like, you can watch it, you can have a good time with it, of how ridiculous it gets, and it just kind of works in the end. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's a so bad it's good movie. It's the ultimate guilty pleasure type of film that I would say watch it for that, but don't go in there expecting a good movie or something that needs to be continued into another film, because it just isn't. So with that said, let's go ahead and get back on the positive side of things again. Let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ.
Martin Scorsese brings us a startling vision, an extraordinary story. The Last Temptation of Christ.
So this is based off of the controversial 1955 novel of the same name, written by Paul Schrader, and also with uncredited rewrites by Scorsese and his co-writing partner Jay Cox. You basically have the story of Jesus Christ and his struggle with various forms of temptation, including fear, doubt, depression, reluctance, and lust. The book and the film depict Christ being tempted by imagining himself engaging in sexual activities, which actually caused some outrage from Christians, and includes a disclaimer stating that the film is not based on the Gospels, but upon the fictional exploration of the eternal spiritual conflict. Sure enough, nobody really bought into that, and people went crazy regardless. I mean, this film generated a lot of controversy from Christian religious groups at the time of its release, who took issues with its departures from the gospel narratives, and the film was controversial for a number of different reasons. There was a terrorist attack at a screening for this in Paris in October of 1988. There were actually death threats. Scorsese was actually targeted by death threats and the Jeremiads of TV evangelists. There was a lot of protests. There was a lot of censorships and bans of this film for a number of years. Netflix actually revealed this film to be one of the 5 titles that has been removed from the Singapore version of Netflix at the demand of the Singapore government. So there was a lot of controversy when this movie came out. I mean, this is a film that was going to be controversial regardless of what happens when you're trying to tell what this movie is. But in terms of the movie itself, I mean, it's Scorsese doing what Martin Scorsese does best. I mean, this is a guy that really can take all these different types of genres of films and make something very unique and very different and very interesting, where it's not going to be seen by many as a great overall success, but it's a film that really shows the range that this guy has as a director. I mean, we still see it nowadays. I mean, we just talked about Killers of the Flower Moon not too long ago, and that's a movie from a guy who is still very much a prospect, just crossed into the 80s in terms of his age, and he's still making these really solid movies all the way through that are very different, very unique, and still very much bring up a lot of conversations with people. This is another one that really does deliver that, and it works because you have a solid performance by Willem Dafoe as Jesus Christ, and you also have great performances by Harvey Keitel, Barbara Hershey, Andre Gregory, Harry Dean Stanton, David Bowie's in this movie as well. I mean, there is a lot to admire about this movie. It's not going to be for everybody. It's a film that definitely will spark a lot of controversy and spark a lot of questions. Even to this very day, you still hear a lot of people not feeling too comfortable about this movie, and some of them rightfully so. I mean, some people are allowed to have the beliefs that they want to have, but if you go into it with the right mindset and knowing what Martin Scorsese can bring to the table with any film that he's involved in, this is one you might want to check out. It's definitely another film that shows the range that Scorsese has, and the fact that he's been able to continue to do this after so many years, so many decades, and he's still one of those directors that really you go into and you see a lot of what makes him so special as a filmmaker. He's right up there with guys like Steven Spielberg and Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, these people that still, whenever they make a new movie, everybody wants to see what they're going to do next, because they're still they're still at their highest peak right now in terms of the level of creativity and imagination that they have to work with. And it's a really good film. I'd definitely say check it out if you can. The Last Temptation of Christ. If you like Martin Scorsese's other works, you'll definitely get a lot out of this one. I think it is something that really deserves to be seen as one of his best, as one of his more creatively entertaining films overall. I think it's a very solid film. I'd say definitely check it out. The Last Temptation of Christ. And so, with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback. When we meet next time, we'll take a look back at August 5th, 1988, with a couple of notable films, including the remake of The Blob. We also have The Rescue, and also Vibes. So 3 films to look at next time. We will delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and until then, as always, take care.